Kia ora, welcome into Aotearoa Rugby Pod for another week. Jeff McTainsh back in the chair. Ross Carl's still away, taking a breather. He needs some more time to recover from these two, the usual suspects, James Parsons, Bryn guys. Hey, let's start with the biggest game of the weekend. I mean, it was an incredible game to watch. It was great to be there, and obviously Harbour beating Counties.
I can sense your sarcasm in your voice. But no, look, it was. I think there's a bit of rain that came, unfortunately, before the game, and I guess for the spectacle side of it probably wasn't great. Even though Big Jipper had a lot of energy when I could hear the commentary after the game. But we'll take that win. To be honest, I think last year, we got into an unfortunate position where we lost 3 games in a row and would lose games like that. So, look, we probably aren't overly happy with how we performed. But in saying that, at this time of the year, early on to get the win, we'll take the 4 points for sure.
Okay, let's go to that game at Eden Park, the second test, Bledisloe Cup test, a record win, Jip, for the All Blacks. What did you make of that performance after what we saw last week?
I suppose off the back of fantastic defence, like the Aussies had a hell of a lot of ball and threw a lot of them, and although it was really close in that first half, you sort of felt they were going to break the game open either way, and I think as soon as Artie went to the sin bin and they sort of that not straight, and they got themselves out of that position and managed to kick that big long range penalty. They almost probably took a lot of confidence from that because they started playing, off turnovers, and we haven't seen that for a while. Is the All Blacks scoring so many tries off turnovers and being electric about it. And so you look at the stats, and the territory is weighted heavily in Aussie's favour. But I think that's because most of our tries, were either intercepts or came from deep. But I think a lot of that attacking success was off the back of how their defence galvanised each other. I mean, to tackle at 90% and be on defence for 60-70% of that game is a massive effort.
Yeah. A lot came down to captaincy too, didn't it, Bryn? And as Chip alluded to, sort of that game awareness. You can have limited pill and territory, but if you know how to steer the ship, as Sam Whitelock was doing on that night, it's pretty impressive to watch.
Yeah, probably 2 things. I think first and foremost, we talked about it last week around the penalties. They don't give away 17 penalties, they only gave away 9. So when you're not giving away that many penalties and giving them opportunities to be able to have the ball, even though they did, a territory position had a lot of ball, but in those kind of aerial positions where it's in your own half. But I think just for foremost the Wallabies, they've got to figure out another way how they can try and get the ball to the edge off line speed pressure, because those 2 intercepts happened. One happened last week with Paisami, and then obviously Lolasia early on to Rico, and then another one to Sevu. So when you have that ball in hand, and we probably talked around the French series around, they did have a lot of ball, but they're not getting the pay without the ball. And unfortunately against the All Blacks, they're a team that's, when you give them the opportunities, they're going to score points. Like Jip said, scoring 3 tries off turnover ball with the click attack has been a real strength of the All Blacks in the past, but probably now we got to see that, and you could get put under pressure so much when you give the All Blacks opportunities like that.
Just on those intercepts though, do you find the trajectory of the ball totally different? If you use when Guzzler scored, Brody scored, you watch Rico's flat ball and Aki starts inside Valentini and almost drifts on the pass, and it takes that intercept ability and it's flat, like it is a flat and it's a tracer bullet. Whereas if you look at the 2 intercepts, the big loopy ones the same the week before, and it gives almost Sevu, if you watch they gave great angles of Sevu's one, like he's almost right back trying to cover kick space and do that job, but he almost can see Tamu is about to give it, and then that's when he takes off. And if they get a bit flatter to Valentini, he could almost not look to tap it, but he can recover from there and it doesn't get intercept rather than that lobby one.
And I think it's also like the decision making part with the passes. Like if you look because obviously the wingers are quite high for the All Blacks, Sevu, and even when Rico's in that position, the difference with the Valentini one is obviously the flat passes on because there was nobody on the outside of that. So it's more so I think the decision making that I'm seeing from the Australians is that they obviously see that there is space if they can get it to Sevu, but it might be an attacking kick or a crossfield kick like Lolasia did in that first try, or that little chip in behind they did early on to try and slow down that line speed.
But a lot of people get a heat for Lolasia and Tamura in that situation, but as we know, the comms come from the edge. So a lot of onus has to come on to the guys that are calling for those passes, because they've got to understand what pitches are in front of them, and if they can communicate that better, it makes a game driver's job so much, and they can just execute and pull trigger.
You talk about the line speed and perhaps the choice of pass, but do the Wallabies maybe need to use likes of Valentini a bit more at first receiver, get some carry, get some gain line, and then we saw how well Tate was playing around the ruck, straight up the centre.
Well, just on that, like that first 5 minutes when they scored that first try, it was due to obviously Tate McDermott getting in behind and sniping around the ruck, and so I think if they were able to do that a little bit more, but with that, it's because you get really good quick ball and the likes of Valentini and the ball carriers going over the advantage line and putting the All Blacks under pressure. Like if you think last year when Nick White had a fantastic game, it was because he was able to snipe off the quick ball, the long rucks, and been able to get him behind. And so if they can marry up with Tate McDermott getting around, sniping around and posing questions at the heart defence, it might just tighten up the All Blacks a little bit more. It's like with the Lolesio try, it tightened them right up, and then they was able to have that kick space to be able to execute that kick to Callaway, and then they end up scoring on that. So I think they do need to marry it up because they are having a lot of ball in test match, even against the French. And on the weekend, they had 58% position and 63% territory, so they need to be able to marry it up a little bit better.
But the same thing happened in the French as we spoke about the balance of their attack and that kicking game, and somehow they've got to manipulate the defence to suit their game and then make those decisions from the comms on the outside. And if they can kick more, like utilise this 50-22, like that hasn't been utilised hardly anything. And then once the wingers start dropping back, then you can start doing the big bold passes and manipulate that way and find those bends on the edge.
There is too, like, because obviously with the All Blacks defence, so they've got the two guys in the backfield, which most New Zealand teams do now, most World Rugby do now. So another way that you can try and do that, and like even at Mitre 10 Cup level, the Tasman do it really well, is kicking in down the middle of the field because that's where the space is. And at least when you do kick, it's bouncing in behind you and it's not catching on the full for then when the All Blacks can counter attack. So, but
that won Tasman the game on the weekend.
Yeah, so that's why you can try and get behind and get space if you do want to kick the ball going down the middle of the field because the two guys are in the backfield on the sides for the contestable kicks or the crossfield kicks. So that could be a way that they go through.
Especially because if you use the All Blacks as an example, the kick pressure they put on Lolesio before Artie's try, you know, and that was a poor exit through that kick pressure, and then from there they managed to score, which was you know, a crucial moment in that game.
Because if you look at the All Blacks, they were very similar to, like, not similar, but similar times with the Lions against in that South African series, is that they would play, if they feel they weren't going anywhere, then they put up a contestable off Nuggie, and I thought actually Sevu and Will Jordan's kick chase pressure was really good, even off kickoffs. Will was trying to get there, and even for the very first kickoff, was in behind in that position, even though he didn't obviously touch it, but that kind of pressure and putting the ball in behind is really good. So I just think the All Blacks are marrying up really well when they are taking a look. The contestables off Nuggie is really paying dividends.
They used it way more this week though, because they only kicked 10 times last week and they kicked 26
probably the weather
this week. Weather, but I also think they realised they didn't kick enough and they needed to use their kick strategy a lot more, which was huge.
57-22. I think what I really liked about the Test match wasn't just the the great tries that they scored, but it kind of harked back to the All Blacks of old being able to adapt to the plan in front of them and play the footy in front of them, the heads-up footy. And big part of that, I thought he played one of his best games in the All Blacks jersey, Akira Ioane, and obviously Artie and those guys. The way they roamed in the wide channels, it was really impressive to watch. Just that extra threat that they had.
I think that's what Akira's strength is that wide channel play. Like he's making massive gains in his tight work and his physicality and defence. But man, if you can execute a game plan and allow someone like him on, you know, that ball in two hands, he's pumping. Callaway has to bite to the winger because he's more worried about that speed, and then he has the ability to give an inside ball, and then Damien gives a freakish offload as well. But it's that ball in two hands, and to run at that pace, at that size. I mean, that's his bread and butter,
too, didn't he?
And also he drifted on the pass of his brothers. You know, like there were so many things that he does naturally that are so hard to do. Do you know what I mean? Like he is such a threat in those wide channels. And then Artie, you know, his physicality and his post contact to get through contact, leg drive, and then come out the other side like he did to link for Jordan's try. You know, like he was massive.
And I think probably a guy that goes unnoticed during that, because obviously when you've got guys that have that ability to be able to attack, like with Artie and Akira. You know, Dalton was fantastic defensively. He topped the tackle count.
He's 19. A workhorse.
And so, like, when you've got a guy like that, can obviously release those guys to be able to play on the edge and get a little bit on the edge with Aki, but even like Artie when he went through the middle for Jordan's try. Dalton does all the messy work, and like
it's the same the week before
I've talked about it before. Like he's only going to grow the more Test matches that he gets. And I know Sam Cane's the captain, and he's going to be coming back probably shortly, but. The more time that Dalton's going to get in that jersey, we're going to start him actually dominating like he does at Super Rugby level with turnovers at big and crucial moments. But he's coming along really, really nicely. I think pairing up with those loose forwards with Artie and Aki.
It's a head scratcher, Jip. What are they going to do here? Because you have to start at some point, I think, going, okay, well, these are the guys we're going to run out most weeks and really try and get some sort of a unit going. But you've got, as Bryn says, you've got Sam Cane coming back. You've got Luke on the bench. You know how good he is. Hoskins as well in the mix. So what do they do you think?
They'll pinpoint some games where they'll create opportunity. It might be this third Bledisloe, and then it's on for those guys taking when they get the opportunity, whether it's 10 or 15 minutes or it's 70, is executing and putting their hand up, because the current three are doing that. But let's not forget, game plans change against different sides. So a style of play that's suited against the Wallabies might be different against a physical, high-kicking team of South Africa and Argentina.
Yeah, styles make fights. So just on the midfield as well, similar situation there. Obviously, we saw Rico as versatility, but you bring in a guy like Anton back, Jack Goodhue eventually, and the like, and there's others too, aren't there, that are out at the moment, not playing in the All Blacks. So, what are they going to go with there, do you think?
Well, I think they're looking to find time for Rico wherever that best suits that 23, because he's in such good form, and he can go between the two quite comfortably, which is massive, and he's showing the ability that centre is becoming more and more comfortable for him at this level. What will be a big test of his growth is that rush D of South Africa, as we've seen on the weekend as well, is that pressure, that defensive pressure, and it's relentless for 80 minutes will be a big challenge for the All Blacks midfield when they come up against them.
How good is D-Mac's range and that ability to kick the long ball off of the tee?
Well, look, it helps, and it's probably a great call from Sam at that kind of time where there's not much of a risk around that. You get the 3 points, and it's really good. So I think with Damo, I've seen him do it before in that kind of area, and so there's a bit of a wind out here. When it was at Eden Park, you could see there's a bit of wind going that way. But anytime you can do that, it's very similar to the South Africans, Morne Steyn, or in that kind of high veld, you can kick it from 59, 60 metres. So now look, when you can have that kind of distance, it definitely helps when you need some points to build some momentum.
It's one thing having distance, but accuracy as well. Like, that was right over the black mark. Like, it was just drops over. It's pretty impressive. And you mentioned Sam Whitelock there. I think he needs to take a massive credit. Like, he'd be up there with Player of the Day in terms of the work he does off the ball. And if we use the example of when Aaron won the line out at the front and he does that break, you watch who reacts the fastest and cleans that ruck. It's Sam Whitelock. He just takes off without hesitation or anything. He reacts and he's I don't know what time of the game it is, and he's done.
As well.
It was a good clean out, and then unfortunately it was knocked on. But just his reaction and his willingness to do that work that sometimes goes unnoticed is, I know it will be well respected in the All Blacks group, but sometimes it might be missed by the viewers.
We'll talk about how good Sam Whitelock is. His locking partner Brodie Retallick has come back from Japan and really, I think, adjusted to that next level of rugby, the top level of footy, reasonably well. We look at D-Mac, he's probably locking down the 15 jumper. He keeps Bodie on the bench, and Geordie, who, Bodie coming back from Japan maybe hasn't adjusted as quickly as Brodie. Is that something for players to maybe consider when they go on sabbaticals now?
Well, I think it's hard because I think Brodie's had the chance to be able to start, and so Bodie's had one start, and then obviously Brodie's had a couple. So I think being able to have the time in the saddle with Brodie to be able to play and iron out a few things has probably been a little bit more valuable. So, but coming back to with Jip, that third Bledisloe could be an opportunity for Bodie and the likes of Bodie and Geordie to be able to start again, because I think come at the back end of the competition, if there are injuries, then they need to be able to have game time against the South African at the back end of the series. But I think it just, like I said, I don't think it's taken time to come back to it. I just think the opportunities probably haven't come. He's had the difference having 15-20 minutes off the bench then with Brodie starting the last two test matches.
A lot of talk, obviously, and there always has been recently, about Ian Foster and whether or not he should be extended through to the next World Cup trip. But I just think, has he done enough just after this test? Maybe isn't the Springboks the final exam? Oh,
I don't know. I think you've got to. You've also got to give confidence in the group and the way they're trending. And I just think of it this way: if you make a change, say at the end of this year, you've got a year to make. If a new coaching group comes in, there'll be system changes, there'll be all sorts of changes, and then you're into a World Cup. They seem like a pretty settled squad. They're going through also a lot of challenges off the field to where the games are played or where they're played, and I think the leadership and the control that this All Black management group and leadership group has shown at the moment is first class and worthy of being acknowledged at some stage.
Just want to touch really quickly on the Wallabies and the Ghetto law, which obviously was brought in. You have to have played 60 tests if you're playing overseas to come back and play for Australia. Scrapping that, I mean, is that going to be a big game changer for Australian rugby and trying to get them on the right path, do you think?
I think maybe possibly like short term, being able to get the players back to come in, but I think, the reason why we're so successful is that we keep our players here, and more so at the kind of the lowest level. So Sonny Bill actually brought up a pretty good point on his when he was talking to Stan Sport around sorting the younger levels out with the school systems and being able to get the development up, because I think putting it all into the international, it can be the short term, and they can bring players in that they need to from overseas, because there are some great Wallabies playing overseas that can't play. But I think it's probably a bigger level around the structures in behind, especially with the younger school grade system, and then even try to do the NRC Cup, and that is it NRC. It's like the equivalent of the Almighty Cup or the Bunnings NPC. Sorry. So I think those are maybe the two things that they need to sort out as well, because I think that's probably a little bit of an issue where we have such a great strength, and even the South Africans with the Curry Cup and their school grade system as well.
Getting that exposure though, Jip, I mean, nothing I suppose beats that experience in the test arena, whether you're winning or losing. Like, you need to be exposed to that level of rugby. So to that end, if we look at the players that they do have, I mean, Michael Hooper, in a losing effort again, he was a beacon, wasn't he?
He's just a freak, man. Like, he is such a good player to watch. And I think Jeremy Poole during the week before this test match said if he was playing in any other era, he would be like held as one of their best players ever. Like if he was playing in a winning side or through that era of Larkham and Gregan, like Jeremy Poole was saying, like, he's just unbelievable. Like, his skill set, his ability to offload and contact, work off the ball, his ownership. Like, if you listen to him after the game, he takes a lot of ownership on himself.
Yeah.
And where he can be better, he never points fingers. Those are the sorts of blokes that you want to follow and you want to get into the trenches with. And like, his level of play on the field is quality. What he's offering off the field in terms of leadership, I think, is massive as well.
Yeah, I interviewed him after the game for Stan Sport, and as you say, the vibe I got off him was he's a guy who's just captained his side in a losing Bledisloe effort, but he very much just didn't give that sort of aura off. It was ownership, it was accountability, it was we've got to get this right, and just a good bloke. So you kind of feel bad for him a little bit. Well,
things around there, like if you're an Australian supporter and you're pretty disappointed with how the result went, but you've got a captain at the front of it saying, look, we need to be more accountable. I need to be better. We need to be better. Then you can kind of accept that as a supporter. Like, look, Dave Rennie's talked around a lot. They want to win. They're not there to just participate. They want there to win. But I think as a captain, you can be able to give that vulnerability and being able to show your fans and more so your group as well that, like, look, this is not good enough. But as a captain, I'm going to take this accountability and somewhat take the heat off the players that are probably going to be given a little bit in the media.
And just on the players that they've got, guys, I mean, there are some young guys in there. Noah Lolosio, is he someone that they've got to persevere with, Jip?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, he's shown quality beyond his years since coming into the Super Rugby comp, I believe, and I think you just need that time. Like we're talking about Brodie before, and don't underestimate stringing games together and how that can bring your form back, and then compare it to the opportunities Bodie's had is 15-20 minutes here. Like, I think it would be unfair to say someone like him isn't playing well, because he's doing his role of what he's been given and the opportunities been given. And I think the ability to just keep Noah going, from game to game, he is only going to get stronger and stronger and understand how to balance the attack, how much they can use Tate and slow that line speed down, keep him running, and if the All Blacks don't adjust, we'll just keep him running, and then once they adjust, then he can bring the ball out the back and do his ball playing and all his stuff he's good at.
We talk around like time, especially as an inside back, like time in the saddle, being able to like iron things out, figure things out, and like obviously this is a little bit different. Like you look at Richie Mo'unga, it's how many test matches he's played, and now he's starting to get into a somewhat of rich reign of form, being able to have the experience of being in big games. That World Cup series was invaluable for him. Like, you look at it probably now, you think, was he ready for it? But then, that kind of experiencing brings you into like where you are now. And even you look at Super Rugby level, and I know it's different. Like, you look at Bodie and TJ when they first started, they were young, they weren't winning all games, but you keep with the tried and true, you keep giving them opportunities to be able to see what that looks like. And then Bodie as well had an apprenticeship under DC, and then had maybe 20 odd tests starting before he kind of got onto that 2016-2017 World Player of the Year form. So I just think you need to stick with him and give him the opportunity to be able to grow.
And we're talking about the individual here, but there's so much more that goes into it for that position to be successful. Like, let's use Richie as an example. He's got his best mate outside him at the moment. He feels comfortable. He looks comfortable. He's running, with a lot of confidence. Rico is a big talker at centre. He's going to give you a lot of comms. Sevu just looks he wants the ball and he's excited all the time. So you're going to get a lot of comms from him. Will Jordan as a familiar voice to him, and Damien's that dual pivot role. So he's surrounded by a lot of comms, a lot of experience, a lot of guys that know what they're doing, and feeding that in to make his job easier on the back of a forward pack that's going really well as well. And then Noah, the week before, he had two young guys in Ikitau and Paisami, and they're learning and growing, and they probably don't have that ability to communicate and control the game and take the pressure off and understand. And I think that's why Tamua came back in. But it worked for 40 minutes, and had they capitalised on that yellow card, it could have been a different story. But understanding Callaway's new, Korobeti wants the ball any way he can, because he's just, and depending how those comms are coming in and the comfortable nature that Noah has, it's not just on these individuals. You can't just go, he's not playing well. There's just so much more to come into it.
And I totally agree around that. The real strength that Davey has is that he's a great communicator to Richie. And what I see, I'm fortunate if I get to see it at training. When you're giving the clear comms to the inside, it makes your job so much easier. So it's not just off like back moves, but it's it's off phase play. And if you're seeing that kick space behind, like Davey's looking at the middle of the field, or he's looking at the cross field. So obviously Sevu and Will have been there the whole probably last 2 years. So when you have that continuity and you know what guys are looking for, and you're there together, it makes Richie's job so much easier. And that's probably why we're seeing Richie getting back into that kind of Super Rugby form, because a lot of guys are taking pressure off him. And so for Lolasia, it's really important moving forward that those guys be able to, for example, the bridge passes, it's been able to give the communicator, so why are you doing that? What are you seeing in front of you? Is there kick space behind if Sevu's up, or something like that? So they've just got to be able to give really good communication skills, and the only time they're going to do that is growing, because these other guys have had a lot more time at test level.
They're all good players, and Dave Rennie has got some great cattle to work with there, no question. But as you guys are sort of saying, and having played at the high level, you know that it's not just what you're doing on the park, it's those little nuances. It's like knowing that a guy's going to be there, or knowing that you've got cover in the backfield. Those sort of little things. I
think it comes down to prep as well, and it's been able to get your preparation right for what you're looking with your trend. So you've got to give a big pat on the back for the coaches as well, because they're given the game plan, they're given what they're seeing, what the trends are of the other team. It's not to say that the Australians aren't doing that, but I think when you do have the experience, Nugget, who's played 100 test matches, and so you've got guys that are playing together, like with Richie, and saying that he's got the Crusader kind of players that he's playing with, it's only going to give you confidence in playing better. So again, it's just going to take time for the Australians to be able to do that, and being able to have that combination moving forward. Just
to wrap up the ABs, Wallabies, Chip, what changes would you make for Perth?
Well, I think it's a prime opportunity to give some guys an opportunity, and we've just spoken at length. And someone like Richie doesn't want to have a break. I understand that, but I'd love to see Bodie get another crack at 10 and see what he can do there, and around the forward pack. You could potentially look at giving the skipper rest. There's quite a few more tests to come at some stage. He's playing outstanding as well, but making sure that he's managed a little bit, and there's some pretty quality locks that are sitting waiting for an opportunity as well. So, and I'd love to see Asafa Moore get a crack at some stage. I don't know where he's at, with his concussion and that, but even if it's not in the Bledisloe at some stage, in year 2 or whatever, I'm just really keen to sort of see his development progress, because if you look at Samasoni Takiaho, how much he's grown and developed by having continuous weeks in the side and in those preparation environments, he just looks at home at that level. Like he looks so comfortable.
Pretty seamless.
And I just think, imagine what if we could string a couple of weeks together with Safar Moore, would be great as well.
And there might be a few changes in the loose forward trio as well. The possibility of maybe like a Shannon Frizzell, Luke Jacobson, who's been probably talked around, probably having a start, whether that be 8 or 6. Blackadder's probably 8. And then even Hoskins, who had a great performance for Counties Manukau on the weekend.
I think we can consider Blackadder at 7 as well.
Yep.
Getting maybe a balance and giving Dalton. He's made a lot of tackles the last 2 weeks. He's had a lot of rucks. Like there's nothing he's not in.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty big physical matchups coming in against South Africa and RG.
It's funny that as a player though, when you are playing so well and you've got...
you don't want to have a break.
So it's a fine line, you're not...
They'll be watching this going, shush, just pipe down.
So it'll be interesting.
You mentioned the box to come. Let's go there now and talk Los Pumas, Springboks. What has happened to Springbok rugby? And they sort of fell off a cliff for a while. They came back, had that series against the Lions, played so well, and now a second string size beats the Argentinians.
They've got so much confidence in their defence. Like they off the back of their rush D, they force a lot of errors. They make you have to make decisions a lot faster than other teams. And off those errors, they scored one long range try early from those errors. They also, when they get the ball, they're just going to pin you into your corner. So it's like ruthless defence, and then bang, go backwards. And then as forwards, the big Argentinian forwards are running backwards all day into the corner. They kicked 46 times the South Africans in this game. Compared to the All Blacks and Wallabies, All Blacks kicked 26 and Wallabies 25. RG kicked 29 times, but it does show that off the back of their defence and a style of play that they want to play with their kicking game, it works and it gets them results, and they're building a lot of depth. Like, man, that was pretty impressive.
When you can make that many changes and then against an Argentinian team, who beat the All Blacks last year, and actually are quite a tough nation to play. But I guess the kind of thing that I've come from that South African that game is that, and also in the Lions series, the only time they want to play is when they're inside the 22. So, they build that scoreboard pressure, they build it with the kicking game, their rush defence, and the only time they really play is when they are inside that 22. So, what I'm really looking forward to, and I know it's a couple of weeks, and I've got to hold tight a little bit, is when the All Blacks, they obviously want to play rugby, very similar to like the Lions before they went into the series, were playing a lot of rugby. It's going to be interesting to see if the All Blacks, if they can get through that defence system, because the defence system is pretty good at the moment, and so it's going to be interesting to see if they have a plan B if they can't get the attacking structures right against the South Africans.
I don't think I've looked forward to a test as much as the 100th between these two countries in Dunedin. I'm absolutely pumped for it and fizzing. I can't wait, because as Bryn said, like, just contrasting styles and just two Goliaths meeting head on.
Two teams peaking into form as well. And it's just different styles of play, and it's the team that's going to adjust the best, and what's coming from both of them. It's if you talk about the turnovers and the opportunities that the All Blacks create off the turnovers, like South Africa just do not play with the ball in their half. They are just plugging the corners, so those opportunities are not going to go away. And that defence, so how we use our kicking game and thing. I mean, in terms of the build-up and talking and having a conversation about it, it's just exciting, because you actually don't know which way it could go.
There won't be an empty seat at Forsyth Bar Stadium. Just on that test again, any players work their way into the forefront of that top South African side?
I think the way Elton Yancey's controlled the game, I thought that was really impressive. Pollard was great during that Lions, but he's got a different style of play, and it's a little bit more attacking, I believe, like especially around the kicking game, and most of his kicks were attacking kicks, either chips or crossfield kicks, and I like that they have that balance to potentially go between two game plans and have someone like him in and around the squad and have the ability to start him, and this young winger Fussy. Like quick and wants to be involved, and holds his width and his channel, and then
him and Colby.
Oh mate,
that's the scary thing you're saying, is like they play this game, they play this brilliant defensive game, kick them behind, play the territory, play the corners, and then now we're in the 22 and we've got these electric players in our outsides to use.
Well, that's the thing, and I think we talked about that first test match in the Lions series. They didn't use Colby, even though he does great in his kick chase and that kind of stuff. But his what he's so good at is attack with ball in hand. So that's what I like with obviously Elton Yancey's, and even Kobus Reinach, who I thought was fantastic. He's got some great speed. Obviously, it was off turnover ball, and and that's where he got most of his metres. But look, when you've got that kind of running threat and can be able to put those guys into positions, even off crossfield kicks like Yanchis' kick, it's going to go for a lot better. I thought also Lou Diego was great for them, their lock. Even Etzebeth has had a great series for that Lions series and continues to be a world-class lock. But he had 19 tackles, and so he was dominant with the tackles. But I think I'm just really looking forward to seeing them when they do play the All Blacks.
The work their Type 5 are doing defensively to keep getting up and leading that line speed and putting that pressure on and make tackle after tackle. Argentina were camped in the 22 and they just couldn't get across the try line. They're looking to play that physical dominant style, and they just kept getting bash back, which was impressive that they could back up what was a pretty successful Lions tour to almost make a statement and say we're coming for the rugby championship, and we've got the ability to go between different styles.
Yeah, I know. I mean, some people disagree and say, "Oh, we need to be playing the Springboks more." But I think that little period of time that we haven't been, it just built the anticipation. It was like England for a long time. Hadn't played them for 3 or 4 years, and you finally do. It's great for the game.
Well, it is, and I think because we've played them so many times in there, it's the 100th Test match. So that's going to add to the build-up, and not playing them since the World Cup is adding to that as well. And I think the good thing, both teams are in hot form. They're the number one ranked the number one team in the world, and we obviously want to get that mantle back. Ian Foster's talked about a lot in the media around wanting that back, and the best thing about it is there's 2 games. So you get an opportunity to see it twice.
Let's talk about international rugby, a bit of admin there, guys. We'll go over that. So obviously the Lions are going to come down to Australia 2025, tour down under. Salala Mapusua, Samoa head coach, wants them to be involved with the Pacifica nations as well, maybe make a sort of a wider tour of it. What do you think of that, Bryn?
I think it's great. I think to get an opportunity to be able to play against a team like that, it's only going to add for the nations, those kind of nations. And I guess probably the learnings from the series that just went, you want the best players to be able to be available for that. And so you'd like to think that, we've talked around the laws around possibly, the tier 2 nations getting opportunities to get their big players back in play, because, the likes, especially in a series like that, we've talked about a lot of these players like Piatau, Luatua, Famoina, those kind of players that getting the opportunity to play in that kind of scene, because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity you get to do that. So I think being able to add depth into those nations so they're competitive, and we get to see a great brand of rugby and a good representation of Islander rugby.
New Zealand's greatest 15 has been selected over the last couple of weeks by Sky Sport. Type 5, all-time Type 5. I'll run this one by you, mate, and see if you agree. Tony Woodcock, Woody, Fitzy, Sean Fitzpatrick, Ken Gray, up front, Brodie, Retallick, Colin Meads. There's your 5.
I mean, it's a formidable Type 5, isn't it? I was watching this happen and I thought, man, that is so hard to pick. It's pretty brutal. I'm happy to see Woody in there. That's good to see, and Brodie's there. But I mean, I've waxed lyrical about Whitelock the last couple of weeks, but I don't think anyone would be knocking Pine Tree out of there. So, mate, it's a tough one, but it's pretty exciting for those guys that have been named, and good to see a couple of Blues men there in 1 and 2. So it's always good to see.
Yeah, no, you're right. They can't be easy. Generational, players coming through.
Well, if you use Colsey as well for an example, like Colsey changed the way hookers played.
Yeah.
The way he sort of had his style and he stuck with that, and now everyone's sort of followed it. And I think a player like him has changed a generation of players, which is pretty powerful.
Absolutely, no, it's difficult. I think it's almost impossible to pick an all-time 15 based on the generations. Hey, just a couple more things. Joseph Manu, linked to a move from NRL to Union. How do you think he'd go in the 15-man code, Brynner? And do you think he'd play Super Rugby? Where would he likely go?
Coming out Crusaders. The Blues have already got a league, a couple of league boys possibly there. So but look, I think it's great. Anytime you can get a guy that has played well for the Roosters and with the Kiwis as well. He's a great ball runner and has the ability to beat players one-on-one, and great defensively as well.
Obviously, I love my league and listen to a lot of podcasts, and the league pundits over there were comparing Joseph Manu to guys that you need to lock down like Tommy Trbojevic, James Tedesco and Latrell Mitchell. Like, that's how highly regarded he's held in Aussie league circles for someone that could almost demand $1 million prize tag over there. And is he going to be able to get that here? I'm not too sure. So what his motivations would be is potentially coming back to represent the country. So he certainly will have some tough decisions to make, because I'm sure by the sounds of guys that there's guys that know a lot more about league than me are saying there's a lot of zeros to be on his next contract. So I think it's exciting for him, and if he does come here to play, if he's held in that sort of regard by these pundits, like imagine what he could do in the rugby field.
Yeah. Another guy is back, Waisake Naholo. Has he got enough tank, enough juice to come back and play some super? He's got his own song in Dunedin, so is he just going to go back to the Highlanders?
Must be hard wearing a a Canterbury jersey with all the Waisake Naholo fans down in Dunedin. But no, look, I think it's great to see experienced guys come back. Even look like the likes of Brady Evans last year. The Highlanders came back, and the experienced guys coming back, it adds to it. So especially possibly even back at the Highlanders, they've got a young core down there that are especially the outside backs or wherever they feel fit in New Zealand franchise. Even Moana Pacifica is coming in around it as well, and the Fijian team as well. So
Jonah injured.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'll tell you what, if any Super Rugby selectors watching the Bop Southland game, Lanisi Ratavavi, oh mate. He glides and
holding the ball on
I'd heard great things like coming out of Bay of Plenty that this guy is the real deal.
Karaka yearling sales.
It's unbelievable though.
Oh man, I don't need to sell him. That would be the easiest deal known to man. I'm sure his another weekend playing like he did against the Stags, he'll be selling himself.
It seriously
mate.
looked like the Fijian Sevens team. By the way he was holding the ball and just gliding and getting through contact and.
It also looks for contact though.
Good.
Yeah.
Just finally, a quick one from both of you. RTS this weekend. The word is he's going to play for Auckland and the Bunnings Warehouse NPC. I'm pumped to see him come back out of Otahuhu College. Obviously played New Zealand schoolboys. Think the year after you. What are we expecting?
Oh, excitement! I think if you're an Auckland fan, you definitely don't want to. Where are they playing the game this week? Who have they got?
Eden Park.
Eden Park.
Bay Plenty.
Even Bay Plenty. What a great game to be a part of. So, but I saw that reading in the paper with Roger.
He might be up against our man.
Oh yeah,
it could be a hell of a matchup.
But from what I've heard in the camp is that he's there 2 hours before trying to sort out his game prep and understanding what it is to be back in rugby, and then also I think he's being told to hold back a little with the old GPS because he's running too much. I think he was at the Warriors and kind of run them into the ground a little bit, and obviously he's thinking he wants to do more. So I think for a guy coming in and for the group as well, someone of his stature that's done so much in the rugby league, coming back and showing that kind of work ethic, it's pretty powerful for.
It's infectious, isn't it? Like especially when people, young players coming through will hold him in such high regard, absolutely. And they'll see him doing that, and then they'll follow. Like that. It's so influential having players like that in and around your environment doing those things.
I can't wait to see him play. There's certainly going to be some eyeballs on that game. James Parsons, Bryn Hall, as always, lads. Thanks for coming in.
Cheers mate.
Thanks, mate.
And that is Aotearoa Rugby Pod for another week. Ross Carl is back next week. You've got him back. But from me, Jeff McTainsh, thanks for tuning in.